The only thing that would make it more, I guess, complete in a sense is the rebuilding of a relationship with you.
In order to reestablish a good relationship with me again, you need to connect and bond with Mary. There's going to be parts in our child's life that you're going to miss out on. And I don't want that.
What is going on, people? We are back again with another MovingMAD video. And oh my God, Brandon. So his mom's breaking down the concept, or at least how she's recovering, you know, from being an addict. And, you know, a part of that journey of becoming a better person and not relapsing is to make relationships, you know, with people that matter. And obviously Brandon being one of those people. So therefore she's expressing that, which makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, Brandon then obviously comes back and says, well, but I also need you to obviously make the effort to make it work with my wife to be, you know, the woman is going to give birth to my child, to your grandchild. So, you know, they are both right in their own respects. Definitely both right in their own respects, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's never going to be a good thing. It's never going to be a healthy thing if Brandon's mum is trying to make amends with him, but also having a war with Mary and not trying to be cordial with her. Because therefore you're setting up a very unstable landscape, a very unstable foundation. And in this conversation, Brandon does educate his mum a little bit on Mary also, you know, being neglected from her parents. So also the difficulty that she has, and, you know, to kind of give his mum a bit of insight of Mary's attitude, which is good, you know, but it's good for Brandon's mum to understand why Mary behaves the way she behaves. But at the same time, though, despite that, it doesn't mean that Mary is allowed to still behave the way she behaves, you know, because the way she behaves is not kind, it's cruel, it's horrible. And she always likes to play victim, you know what I mean? And because of that, Mary can't necessarily be given like an excuse or a whole pass. Mary still needs to do better, because the way she isn't somebody who you would see that would actually ever become a good parent. Because you got to think about it, the fact that Mary's always panicking about abandonment, it makes me think that maybe if things got hard for her as a parent, she might even do the same thing. She might even abandon her role as a parent, because that does happen, especially if she became a single parent. There's a time before in the season where she spoke about, well, you can leave now, I'll do this by myself, all that kind of nonsense. But in reality, if she was to end up being a parent all by herself, I don't know if Mary could hack it, because at the same time, I don't know if she would even have the support that she would need from her family that she has now. But we continue.
Come from what I believe to be a dysfunctional environment. You come from a dysfunctional family. When you haven't dealt with all the things that you grew up learning, it just becomes this repeated pattern. I remember.
Right. So, but here, slowly but surely, we are getting better at it.
Me, I'm trying to be better myself, because even now I'm still overthinking and I can't handle it.
Brandon's mom coming in with the gems, you know, coming in with the education here. And you know, the crazy thing about it is that what she's saying is all true, you know, because we've definitely seen a cycle with these two, with Brandon and Mary, in terms of the fact that they always end up falling out, they always end up arguing, and it's literally on repeat. But it is very, very strange and very wild that Brandon says that things have gotten a little bit better since coming to Thailand. Yeah, that's a lie. Things haven't got any better. Things are the same as what they were before. You could argue that maybe things are even worse. It depends on what perspective you want to look at it, right? So the fact that Brandon is saying that is not a good thing, because that means he's already blocking off the idea that he does need to improve in his relationship with Mary, which isn't a good thing, because you see, whilst his mom was talking in the previous scene about how she wants to do better in terms of her addiction and making sure that she stays on the right path, she needs to start building those bridges that she burnt. Okay, and obviously being a part of it is making a relationship with her son. But his response was, well, at the same time, I need you to connect with my woman. But here's the problem though. Brandon cannot expect his mother to actually authentically connect with his woman if he's not being completely truthful with himself in terms of what is actually happening in his relationship with Mary. And at the same time with Mary too. But then again, Mary did say that she needs to work on herself as well, which was a very good reply and a very honest reply, because that is the truth. And that's something they both have to do individually, you know? It's just such a shame, isn't it, how our childhood can really define how we become, you know, as adults, based on how we was treated, how we was made to feel, you know, just all those traumatic experiences, both the good and the bad. And it is quite interesting, because we are witnessing two people who have similar backgrounds. And in my opinion, I just don't think people who have similar backgrounds like these two should be together, because And that's not to say nobody should be together that has a similar background like them. No, it's just that we're dealing with two people that have not healed from their backgrounds. It'd be very, very different if one of them had at least healed, so that the other one can maybe support the other one in moving forward. Or again, it would be even better if they had both healed. But because we're dealing with two people who have not healed, who have not recognized their own flaws, and haven't even done any kind of like self-care, whether that be getting a therapist or just finding yourself in your own way. This is why these two are on that pattern of repetition. Literally, it's happening again and again and again. Groundhog Day type stuff, you know what I mean? Edge of Tomorrow type stuff. It's happening again and again and again. Looper type stuff, you know what I mean? Over again and again and again and again. It's like, yo, this is never going to change unless you change something or a few things that are enabling you both to continuously behave in this way. But honestly, kudos to Brandon's mom for coming in and obviously trying to tell them what they need to do.
We like to see both of you doing individual therapy. The things that you struggle with, like the fear of abandonment, overthinking, Brandon has his own things, you know, and you guys work on those separately. I promise you that together you will function better. Struggle with, like the fear of abandonment, overthinking, Brandon has his own things, you know, anger and codependency.
See, independent therapy, definitely something that they both need, so they can both work on their individual differences. You know, those things that put these two in a position where they always end up having to argue, having to want to rip each other's throats off. You know what I mean? You know, and having that therapy and having that self-care individually is going to be a very, very big factor. Reason being is because it is very important to find yourself. You know, it's very important to find your where you're most happy. It's important to find out where you are most unhappy, and then also then it's also important to find out how do you find that. It's then important to find the middle ground, because that middle thing is the thing that helps you become happy when you're at your lowest, or maybe even help you avoid the situations. The best way I can explain it is this: if I use myself as a reference, when I went through my dark path during the lockdown era, like many people did, right? My whole thing coming out of that was, okay, I had to look at when I was at my most happiest and how I got to my lowest. And then I said to myself, okay, cool. Let me start from the day I was pretty much, well, the day I knew that I was born, right? The day that I knew I was a human being, right? Whether that be 2, 3, 4, whatever age it was. I think it was probably about 5, 6. So I was like, okay, I remember at this stage when I was 5, 6, I was a really, really happy child. I was really happy from the ages of 5, 6, maybe all the way until the ages of 7, 8, right? Those were my prime happy years, you right? But then somewhere down the line from 8 till like 13, 12, things had to change. And I'd think about, well, why? Then obviously from 13 to like 18, another change. I'm like, well, why? You know what I mean? And skip a couple of years from like 21 or 22 to like 27, I was like, okay, why? And then boom, it hit the rock bottom part, right? So in my mind, I was like, okay, cool. I've had a whole chain or whole continuity of just things happening negatively. What I really want is the first bit. The first bit. So I was like, okay, cool. I want to do my best to feel how I felt then. But what was I doing then that made me feel good? Now that's for me to know. And that's for you to know for yourself. So I said to myself, okay, cool. I got to now implement those little things that I did as a child that made me feel so happy. But I've also got to adapt to the fact that I've been through so much in that time. So now I want to use the foundation of who I was as a child to build my mechanisms to get me through to the things that I'm at now. But also, I also analyze the mechanisms that I create throughout the years that allowed me to get by all those years, that allowed me to still have moments of happiness. Looking all those things together, I was like, okay, boom, this is what I need. But it wasn't enough though, because at that point I was like, but now I also need to do other things. And the other things I need to do is now I need to start chasing goals. I need to chase the goals that I've always had in life unapologetically. This is what I'm saying. And then at that point, other mechanisms started coming into place. So point being is that allowed me to build a character that I'm now proud of, right? And I feel like the character that I am now is a character that I love to share with the world. And it's a character that I love to share with someone, right? So my point is, when it comes to Brandon and Mary now, these two haven't done any character building whatsoever. I had to do a lot of character building. Of course, I was doing it anyway for the years, but then I had to take all the characters that I was everything and put them all together to the character that I want to be moving forward. Because I no longer want to be in that dark phase anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? And when it comes, I want to be ready for it. So I can just go, boom, leave me alone. You know what I mean? So Mary and Brand don't have that. They don't have character. You know, both of them are still stuck at a very certain point in their life. Whatever point that is, I don't know. Only they know that. But they are both stuck at that point, and they have not been able to build a character since then. They've stuck, and that's why it's important that now they're in a position where they can build a character individually, and then once they've built those characters individually that makes them happy, they can then bring those characters together, and then boom. I hope that makes sense, because that was the best way I felt I could explain it in terms of the references and stuff like that. But either way, all I know is this, from my own self-opinion, it's self-growth, building character of who I wanted to be and how I want to be and how I want to see myself moving forward was a very key element of me then channeling back till forward. Do you see what I'm saying? Anyway, with that being said, let me know exactly what you're thinking down below, and we can talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, peace.